Hey guys, Dave Chang here. I am down at the Majordomo Media Studios. You may see some familiarity with our Netflix Dinner Time live show. Same studio, different setup, but we're filming and recording our podcast, The Dave Chang Show. We've done a couple of trial runs here or there, but this is where you're going to see us for a majority of the time moving forward, constantly iterating, constantly changing the show. And today, hopefully you'll be watching and listening to the Dave Chang Show, where we're going to be making ramen. We've been inspired by the movie Tampopo. We reviewed it a couple podcasts ago, probably the genesis of all food porn as we know it today. And the food porn in question is ramen. And I watched this movie and it stirred a lot of emotion and a lot of memories and a lot of nostalgia. It caused me to sort of think about going back and making some ramen. And I'm going to make a bowl of ramen today in a way that I've never made before, and also show you that it's quite easy to do at home, and that ramen, in a lot of ways, as cheesy as it sounds, is a way to have self-expression, especially in a rigid food culture like Japan. But I think it's one of the reasons why it's taken off here in America and the world over. So stay tuned. We're going to make some really delicious things, and I'm going to eat this. So go watch us, go listen to us. Welcome to the Dave Chang Show. You're watching the Dave Chang Show. You're also listening. Hopefully you're not driving and doing it at the same time, something I've tried to do. This is
still part of the Ringer Podcast Network.
Part of Majordomo Media. Ramen.
Yeah, ramen. We watched Tampopo. People should listen to that episode. We did our version of the rewatchables called Food Scenes Only. But you hadn't seen it for a while.
I had not seen it in a while, and I actually can't remember if I saw it before I moved to Japan.
Oh, interesting.
Definitely, probably not. I don't remember.
It's not, there's no like, Dave Chang as a young man saw Tampopo and was inspired to open a ramen. That's not the story.
No.
But when you see it.
It's been a while since I watched this movie, and I wouldn't say it's a strange movie. It's not a ringing endorsement. It's a beautiful movie. It's also extremely sometimes problematic movie, but I haven't thought about ramen in that way in a long time. And this movie uses ramen as a vehicle to talk about Japanese society, culture, Yakuza, a couple other things. You should listen to that podcast. We deep dive with Noel. But the one thing it did was it sort of captured sort of ramen before it became the craze that it is globally. And it was filmed in 1983, 1984. And I like to talk about ramen or think about ramen because it's one of the few things that has really happened food culture-wise as a recent invention. So you can almost identify these seminal moments and how it's evolved. And I thought, why don't we record a podcast where we talk all things ramen? It's not going to be the most comprehensive thing, but I'm also going to try and talk and make ramen in a way that I've never made before, just screwing around. And I think I proclaim that you can make ramen pretty easily in like an hour. And one of the things I love about ramen, one of the things I love about the movie Tampopo, is that you can't really lay claim to sort of anything. At the time, the reason why I fell in love with ramen is it sort of, it challenged the notion of what was traditional. It's very countercultural, etc. All of these subversive things, and that ramen could be anything because at the time it was considered like a real joke cuisine. People that got into making ramen were, as in the movie Tampopo, women, people that were sometimes recovering like gang members. It was like not seen as a high art form. It still isn't, but it's still to this day probably the only food that you can actually have true self-expression, right? Highest end is probably like, second probably highest end is sushi, then it's kaiseki. But like sushi, for example, changing the order of how you might get your tuna in a omakase is considered like groundbreaking, revolutionary, and downright like heresy, right? Mm-hmm. So like change happens, it's just at a much more minute scale. So that's why I really love the movie, besides living there, and it caused me to think about a lot of emotions that I haven't had in a long time.
When you first went to Japan, were you ready for what ramen tasted like there as opposed to what you knew of it in America? Was it totally different?
I mean, the thing about ramen that's interesting, definitely easier than talking to guests, just talking to the voice of the internet himself, but trying to time out exactly how we're gonna make what. So right here I have some pork belly, and I'm gonna cook this in a way that is a little bit different. Traditionally, if you look at old ramen books, they're tying it up, and chashu itself wasn't really a common meat topping. You was usually a shoulder or a tougher cut that was braised and cooked in the ramen broth. Today is not the day to go into all the intricacies and different lineages of how ramen gets cooked, but I'm gonna cook this in a different way. I have some pork shoulder, and that's traditionally how I usually decide to make ramen at home, because I cook a lot of pork still. But this I'm gonna cook the way we do at our restaurants. And I didn't cure it, but it's not gonna prevent me from making something delicious. I'm just gonna do salt and sugar. I think this is still skin on. So we'll try to get this crisp, and we'll see what happens. What were you saying?
No, we were talking the other day about ramen is this food where maybe the only thing we could think of that most Americans thought they knew what it was. And then suddenly it was something completely different. Everyone thought it was just this instant noodle thing.
It was for college kids. It was for, honestly, people always said poor people. Mm-hmm. And that's just not how I viewed it. Growing up, I just thought ramen was awesome, right? Mm-hmm. As a latchkey kid, that was one of the few things I would eat, cook myself. I would poach an egg. I had my own method. And make it spicy. Sometimes I did kimchi. And usually I grew up eating Ichiran ramen, which is actually a famous tonkatsu ramen shop in Fukuoka. But I never thought of it as anything other than, I never thought of it as Japanese. I never thought of it as anything other than delicious. And then I think probably when I was 8 or 9, Shin ramen became a thing, and you eat that. I didn't even know that Shin ramen and my instant noodles were the same thing. Mm-hmm. And cup of noodles was that's what I grew up on too. Lift that up, hot water.
But to your point, they all fall under the umbrella of ramen. They're all totally different things.
But I was shocked when I learned, it was one of those moments where I was like, oh, it's all from China. I was really shocked. And it was the same thing when you think about the currency of Asia. It's the yuan and the yen.
Yeah, all the same. Basically all the same thing, just variations on a theme.
So again, part of it is the familiarity that people don't realize just how much, China was Asia and influenced everything. So Chinese ramen is what?
Is the predecessor, is ramen is la-mian, which is just pulled noodles. It's all from the same etymological place.
And I didn't know that. I don't think a lot of people knew that. So when you get lo mein at the Chinese American restaurant?
So lo mein itself is sort of the specific Cantonese style. It just means stirred. But la-mian, ramen,
it's hand pulled noodle.
Pulling them.
And one of the key attributes to hand pulled noodles or noodles in general was, and this is a crucial thing that I had a hard time figuring out when starting out Momofuku, was the kansui, the sodium sodium carbonate. You really want to change the pH, so you want to raise it. That has a lot of things. It changes the color, but more importantly, it changes the structure of the starch. So the wheat starch has a higher temperature, so a higher gelatinization point. What that basically means is when you add 1 to 2% of the wheat flour weight in sodium carbonate, kansui, alkaline salts, you make it more difficult for the noodle to disintegrate in hot soup, which is why it's so important. And when I first started out in 2004, look, there was no internet. There was internet, there was nothing about ramen, trust me. Even before that, 1999, 2000, there was a website called worldramen.net or something. That was my Bible, because I went to every restaurant in Japan that it told me to go to. But in terms of how to make it and the science and the lore and what to use, like it was very similar to the movie Tampopo. Like I was just asking anybody that made it. So I worked at the 2 places that actually made ramen in Japan, in America at the time. One was the Bally's Casino in Atlantic City. I worked there for 2 weeks. And one was I spent time at Rearden, which is near the original Momofuku, to see. And that was it. Yes, there were a couple places that sold ramen, but I learned that they just used soup base that was like a concentrate. So to my knowledge, that was it. And one of the things that didn't exist was any concept of the noodle itself. So, I mean, I was only cooking professionally like 4.5 years back then. So the idea of me figuring out how to do that was like beyond my means.
Yeah.
So I would go to every noodle manufacturer I could to be like, can you make this for me? I have an idea of how to make it. And they're like, oh yeah, no. People don't want that. And more importantly, they wouldn't do it because by adding the sodium carbonate in their machine, pasta machines, the noodle machines, it would have to be dedicated to just that. There wasn't a single person that wanted to make any business related to ramen.
That's like, it's so absurd to think about where ramen was in America at that point and where it is today. Like you couldn't find a single person that was willing to follow. I mean, when you were thinking about opening Momofuku, you also asked classmates, like, right? Like, hey, you want to do a noodle shop? And they're like, what the hell are you talking about?
No one even had any concept of what the hell it was. Pho was actually more well known than a ramen shop.
For sure.
And I ate more pho, but like I never had ramen at like a ramen bar. That just never happened. So over 25 years, it's just wild to think that, yeah, I was part of something. I didn't invent anything. But sometimes you can't connect the dots. Like you can't connect the dots. Like if I didn't teach English in Japan and if I didn't like covet trying to go to this ramen bar, that was like the only thing that wasn't like a Lawson's in my shitty town of Izumi Tottori, I don't think I would have built up this like, this thing in my mind about what ramen was. And the biggest thing then, what I realized later, that ramen could be whatever it wants. And literally it could be anything to anybody. That's what ramen is. I don't give a shit what anyone says. Yes, there's traditions. Yes, there are styles. But what makes ramen amazing is that there is no defined rules.
Right. Let's be clear, there can still be bad ramen.
For sure. But
But
I couldn't connect the dots till later that what the eureka moment was seeing people queue in line for 2 hours, 3 hours at a time for something that I was like, what?
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the taste. Yes, ramen is delicious, but what I think was more important was like, this is a food that no one really knows anything about in America.
Yeah.
Which was like, wait a second, everyone knows it, but no one knows it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't think of anything else. So I was like, what's the comp? It would be like eating Stouffer's pizza, which I love. If you haven't had this French bread Stouffer's pizza, and thinking that like, well, this is pizza.
Yeah.
Well, you're not wrong, but no one would say that it's
But then
pizza.
somebody opens the first pizza shop. It's like Stouffer's Pizza. People might be confused and think like, yeah, but there's all these pizza shops. It's as though the only pizza anybody had ever tasted was Stouffer's, and then somebody opened a pizza shop.
correct.
Like that's mind-boggling to think about. Can you talk a little? I know you're scrambling here, but you got multiple components, just so people can orient themselves around what you're generally working on here.
So usually I would just cook this piece of pork butt, and I'd roast it in a Le Creuset pot or a pot like this. And I might roast it first so I can get the roast meat, and then all the drippings and everything, and then I'd turn that into a broth. But like, or sometimes I'll just boil it, and that's what I'm gonna do right now, but for sake of time, I'm gonna put this in a pressure cooker, and hopefully it'll be done in 45 minutes. But all I'm gonna do, because I love boiling meats, I want to put some respect on boiled meat's name. All I'm gonna do is boil this till it's like, you can slice it where it doesn't fall apart. And then when I've done that over the years, because sometimes I might slice it and serve it with a salad or something, because that's suyuk. This is something that's very Korean. It could be brisket, it could be something else. I'm gonna save that broth and turn that into something else. But more and more I was like, wait, I have this porky, it's clean. I think this could just be ramen. So I just started thinking like, oh yeah, why not? Who says it can't be ramen? So oftentimes when I make something like this, I don't cook it in a pressure cooker at home, but I mean, this is an easy 3-hour dish. You'll see what I'm gonna do.
So that'll be sort of a topping. The chicken in the pot is going to become tare. So ramen components, generally speaking, you have one broth, maybe two broths. That became sort of more in vogue, I think, in the 2000s, combining a chicken broth and a dashi, seasoned with a tare.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit, if you have a second, just about like that notion of there's a clean, relatively unseasoned broth, and then you're seasoning it with a separate component?
Well, like, tare is just like a sauce, right? That's where you get teriyaki from. Yaki means fire grilled. Tare is like that sweet sauce, soy sauce. So I think it's probably good to back up a little bit as to what the hell ramen is. So ramen, because like it's the only way to explain everything, right?
Yeah.
Chinese in origin, however it came down either through immigrants or just through Chinese domination.
Like in the late 1800s or something, in Yokohama.
And Yokohama is basically like the Minneapolis to St. Paul of Tokyo. It's like,
I was like, what?
Right there. And Yokohama has a really awesome Chinatown. Anyway, so for the longest time, ramen was noodle soups, Chinese influenced, and it probably had menma, which is bamboo shoots. Maybe sometimes it would have negi, which is scallions. It had chashu, which would be like a leaner cut of pork, and maybe an egg, maybe. And that was it. So it'd be a pork chicken based. Tokyo is known for its shoyu, soy sauce based. And a lot of those ramen shops serve chahan, which is fried rice, and gyoza, which is pot stickers. And that was ramen. Or like around the 1950s, you had like some developments that happened in Sapporo. So you had again, the dates aren't exact. Sapporo started to create, Hokkaido region started to make miso ramen, which is got white miso, usually butter or corn. That's not really the only way they make ramen these days. Fukuoka makes what is really the ramen that's taken over the world, which is tonkatsu, which is emulsification of pork and everything else. It's basically a watery gravy that's been emulsified. It's delicious, but it's a lot.
It's like liquid pig.
And served with traditionally like pickled ginger. And then like in the South, there were other areas where it was more shio based, not as soy sauce based. It would be more salt, and there's maybe a couple other varieties, but those were the main reasons, varieties. And then like Taishoken opened up in like what, 60s?
Yeah, I think so.
So basically what happens in Japan is 51. And this he's now passed, is probably the most influential ramen ya master. He created, not immediately, but he created what is sukemen, which is the dipping ramen, and delicious. And that was a legendary shop, and there's, I think, a bunch of locations of it now. I think there's one in San Jose.
A Taishoken?
I think there's a Taishoken in San Jose.
That's insane.
And you should see pictures of this little guy. We filmed Mind of a Chef with him back in the day. Super sweet man. Anyway, that's an amazing one. I mean, the portions were just like fucking huge. But over the past few decades, you would have chefs like the chef at Taishoken that would do some kind of invention. And because ramen was so sort of like on the lowest level of the food social caste system, people could really try things out that would be forbidden in any other sort of cuisine. So you had a lot of innovation. For Japan, that takes hundreds of years. This was happening in, half a decade. So all of these styles started to happen. And you would have shops that would create new versions of ramen. And it was like Galapagos Islands. It just started to evolve and mutate. And then I think in the late 90s to early aughts is when I was there, wafu ramen started to become a thing. It means like Japanese style. And that was the first time where a lot of the chefs were like, wait, let's use Japanese ingredients first and everything else second. So you started to see dashi, you started to see sardines, or different versions of umami that Japanese is so sort of known for in its cuisine, starting to be put in its food. I think Aoba was one of my favorite shops, and they created the double dip method. I think it's still around. And then you had other versions, like Jiro ramen, not sushi. Like that to me is like people would clearly disagree. The platonic ideal, the archetype of what tonkotsu ramen is. Because the best way to describe Jiro ramen is it's fucking gnarly looking. I mean, you get that bowl, it's bean sprouts, it's garlic, it's hunks, it's delicious, and you feel like you're going to die after you eat it because it's so bad for you. But delicious at the same time.
Big, thick noodles, too.
Super thick noodles. And like, the beautiful thing is, it started to mutate, and like, bowls of ramen throughout Japan started to, you couldn't even recognize it, that was the same thing. Then you had mazemen, and you had, yuzu started to become a thing, and afuri ramen, like all of these shops. And it just sort of reached critical mass. Come to America now, like Momo opens up and then leads to other things. And I mean, I feel remiss and weird to talk about myself or Momofuku, but it was instrumental in bringing ramen to a different concept. So, we talked about in 2000 that you couldn't find a goddamn ramen shop anywhere or find any information. There was no culinary logistic system. There was no Sun Noodle, there was nothing. Actually, Sun Noodle might have existed in Hawaii, but
Sun Noodle was making saimin for the Hawaiian consumer, but I don't think it had dipped into ramen specifically.
It did not dip into ramen quite yet.
But like to your point, you were trying to find ramen shops and you found 2. That's all you found when you started.
Again, like maybe there was more, but Google was like 5 pages long.
Let's say, but let's say just the fact that you could only really find 2 within range. I don't want people to be like, oh yeah, right, Dave. Like there's like hundreds, whatever. You couldn't find them. Today there are, I think, 1,500 around the country. There's so many ramen shops. Like basically,
so many ramen
any
shops.
town in America has a ramen shop.
And that's like amazing. So quick side note, I'm doing this right now is sort of not crucially important, but important. So it's not going to be perfect, but I'm skimming a lot of the impurities out. Because what I'm going to do is bring this to a full boil. I'm going to put some ginger in there.
But so we've got, okay, in the big ceramic pot, you're browning off, it doesn't have to be chicken wings, but like for tare, generally a bony piece of chicken with skin on, chicken backs.
Right.
Generally.
And the reason I'm doing it this way is we were just talking about the evolution of ramen over the years. And listen, I am been out of the exact ramen game for a while, so forgive me if I'm not. There's plenty of experts that would know better. But in my opinion, over the past 10 years, even before the pandemic, definitely before the pandemic, one of the moves, there are 2 moves that I thought of, like food trend wise, and you gotta, as a chef, you wanna keep track of like food trends in general. So the late 90s, early aughts was reintroducing a lot of Japanese flavors, umami. I think the late 2010 to, let's say, not exact, but let's just say the next past 10 years, it has not been the only. There's other trends. One of the bigger trends has been a movement towards more chicken and more austere ramen shops or ramen bowls where it's clean. It's about a pursuit of cleanliness and simplicity, which is actually way harder to do, I think. And shio ramen to me is the hardest ramen to make because there's nothing to fucking hide. And you've seen a lot more of that kind of ramen taking place. And there's so much innovation now, and there's other ingredients from around the world being put in, different kinds of noodles. In some ways, like, I actually think ramen has nowhere else to go. So it has to go back to, and it's funny enough how it started. So my prediction, you're gonna see a lot more versions of the Chinese introduction of ramen, like the super, super classic style.
Because that's what you thought when we were watching Tampopo, that bowl, if anybody has seen Tampopo, the bowl of ramen in there is like a pretty old school style. It is not the Chinese one exactly, but it's noodles, shoyu broth, menma, some fish cakes, naruto, and seaweed, and that's it. And that's like, kind of, I think what you're saying is like we're gonna head back toward that thing. It does look contemporary still in that movie, weirdly.
So I think today I'm gonna try to make one ramen broth, and I'm gonna make a shoyu tare and a shio tare. And I'm not exactly sure how. Usually I do this with chicken bones and you can roast them off, but I mean, I love it when meat has bones on it, or bones have meat on it, because you get a more delicious sort of stock broth. And we're gonna make the sauce, but we're also gonna pick the chicken. We'll eat that another day or today. So I just poured some sugar on there, and I wanna get some caramelization. I wanna get to some real nuttiness from that sugar that's already developing. Because one of the things that I love about Japanese food, I've talked this too many fucking times, is there's an element of smoke that is a thread throughout almost all Japanese food that maybe a lot of people may not realize, and that's because of katsuobushi, which is the dashi from the smoked bonito fish that's been fermented and smoked and preserved.
It's interesting. I've been meaning to ask you to explain this to people.
Do we have any more sake?
We may have some more. You said something just earlier.
Mirin and sake.
Onto the chicken bones. And sugar, right? A bunch of sugar.
Yeah.
And this will be your soy tare, your shoyu tare. But you were describing the flavor of sort of contemporary ramen as clean. Mm-hmm. I think like this is, when I think about conversations with chefs about food, that adjective is used way more times with chefs than anybody at home ever. Nobody describes their food as clean. Like the average person doesn't say it's clean. You know what I mean? Like chefs refer to flavor as clean.
But I view it, again, this is why I love Jerry Saltz so much, because like how you would think about any art form, those movements in art, it's the same to me. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, hot button subject, craft art, whatever. But let's rephrase that a little bit. So if you talk to chefs when they're first starting out, or you're talking to an older veteran chef, more often than not, it's not always the case, there's always exceptions to the rule. The older chef that's been cooking 20 years will be like, all I want is simple food. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know, like just keep it clean, keep it simple. No, I don't say clean, just I want simple. I want to eat simple, I want to cook simple. I want to, almost it looks Italian rustico.
Right.
But when they're younger, it was like, give me everything. I want it to be, more complex. It just runs parallel. That word clean is just sort of the same as, I'm now comfortable in what I want, and I don't want bullshit. I want it clean and simple. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's the way I
Yeah. So clean to you, is clean the opposite of complex then?
Sake. It's fine. We don't have any.
Is like complex not clean?
It's hard.
Yeah.
Complex is simple.
Yeah.
Actually,
it can be a complex process to get to a simple
complex is
flavor.
not always a good thing.
Yeah.
Finnegan's Wake is complex. And I think it's bullshit that people, if we don't know, it's for literary people, they say it's like one of the best books ever written. I think it's illegible.
I have never successfully gotten.
Nobody's ever read it.
It's impossible.
So Yeah, you can appreciate, you can admire complex in food. I certainly do, but you know what I want? I want fucking simple. And I think more often than not, simple is hard to do.
For sure. Well, it's like you said it in terms of shio ramen, which is basically your soup seasoned with salt and not soy sauce. You don't get any, even the complexities of soy sauce. So it's hard to hide. You have nothing to hide behind. So like you said.
Right. So I'm gonna put a lid on this. I'll let this, put some more mirin in here. And just let this sit. Check on that. I have this chicken, and maybe, how much time is it gonna buy? Should I make a chicken one too?
What's our run time out here currently? 30?
I have 30 minutes left?
20. It's only been 30 minutes. Oh my God.
It's not gonna work.
Is the reason why you wanted to try the rice cooker because the rice cooker is a pressure rice cooker?
Yeah, I want to do this as fast as possible.
Yeah. Do you think, I mean, so like this all started, we started making ramen today because we watched Tampopo, and you know, it elicited a lot of mixed feelings for you, but also one feeling for the rest of us, which was just like, damn, I want to eat some ramen. Do you think that, how would you rate ramen in terms of like the average person living in Minneapolis, St. Paul, is it like within their reach to make ramen at home or not? Genuinely.
What?
Can like the average home cook make ramen at home?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm not trying to do my normal leave a fucking grenade on the ground, piss people off thing. I genuinely think ramen can be anything.
Yeah.
And I know that mere statement is gonna piss people off.
Yeah.
It has to be Nihongo, it has to be this, it has to be that. I'm like, well, no, like where the fuck did ramen come from again?
Yeah.
And the ramen today looks nothing like the ramen of China.
For sure.
So like, I think if you really look at the history of ramen, you're like, oh, it's just food. I think at the bare basics, it's noodles. Some of the ramen doesn't even have soup. So is that fucking ramen? You know what I mean? Like, so who gets to decide it's ramen? But if you really, I think, sort of look at what ramen actually is, I think it's an intent, and I think that it's expression of oneself to some degree. But at the end of the day, it's noodles.
Yeah.
You know, like, we can agree, it's gotta be noodles, probably has to have kansui in it, and it has to have umami.
Yeah.
If it's, I mean, what else?
I mean, it doesn't even, like, to your point, it doesn't even need soup. Like that's how fluid it is. I just don't want people to get the idea that like, that means it's not thought, that a lot of thought doesn't go into it. Because what you're talking about with the noodles, when you were saying, you know, a higher gelatinization point and the noodles don't disintegrate in the soup, it made me think about that, like, that stupid fallacy people say, you know, Eskimos have 100 words for snow. When I think about how people talk about noodles and the bite and the springiness and does the soup stick to the noodle, you know, like that's like, people who really care about ramen talk about the way that ramen works in a way that you're like, what are you talking about? What do you mean the noodle's gonna adhere to the soup and the flavor? But yeah, I mean, ramen can be anything.
Again, it's gotta be noodles. Outside of that, it's like,
Basically it.
What is it?
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're wondering what the sound is and you're not watching this, that annoying hissing sound is a pressure cooker.
And the pressure cooker is letting out some, it has like a maximum pressure at which it has to let some out.
So like, you know, one of the things that you've seen, because birria, Mexican birria is like one of these magical foods that is like sort of close to Jang. It's close to a lot of different, I don't know, flavors, but it's delicious. You dip it in tacos, it's braised meats. And you've seen birria ramen. And like, this is the why I'm like, well, can you say that ramen can't be influenced from Mexico? Because I guarantee you, like maybe 50 years from now, something was reverse engineered, reverse osmosis, and like the new thing is like some idea that came from birria ramen, which is like not that crazy to me. Birria ramen is not that crazy at all.
It's not crazy. I mean, you know what's funny is it's like a few episodes ago, you were talking about like an impossible dream of a perfect corn tortilla meeting a true piece of Beijing Peking duck, right? Like, it makes sense. The tortilla is one of the world's great vessels for meat. Peking duck is one of the world's great meats. Birria ramen is similar to me in that it is like, it's one of the great broths of the world, like meat-based broth, slow-cooked, you know, goat or beef. It's a perfect vehicle for noodles. I feel like we're very fortunate that they got to meet.
Right.
You know? Like, it's great. And maybe that is where, you know, North America, whatever, is where like ramen innovation can happen. But I can't think of other things other than birria where ramen should go.
So, I want to make a shio, tare, and I'm gonna screw around with one. See if it works.
I have never seen you do anything like what you're doing right now, so I'm very curious. So that's he's into our little blender canister, maybe 8 dried shiitake mushrooms, 1 big piece of dashi kombu dried seaweed, and then as much katsuobushi as he can jam in there.
This is not going to work. Why don't I smarten up? So dumb.
Literally pot committed to a pot that he will not change. But shio tare is salt based and not based on soy sauce. You got any insight into your thought process here? What the hell are you gonna do?
I don't know. That's looking nice.
I've got while you're getting this together, I think we can take a quick little commercial break and be right back.
So, I'm gonna try to make a salt tare, but I'm gonna try to infuse it with a little fat from the bacon, and I have some chicken schmaltz somewhere. Not that much, but never throw anything away.
So, chicken fat schmaltz, this is literally just harvested from, we made chicken broth the other day and skimmed the fat off the top.
And I don't mind if it has a little color.
So into bacon fat and chicken fat go all the sort of pulverized, dried mushrooms, seaweed, katsuobushi.
Some water.
I'm trying to follow along and describe,
Sake.
but also I'm like,
You should really be watching this.
I also feel like a baseball announcer calling a baseball game where I'm just like, and now the second baseman appears to be going into the stands. I'm not entirely sure what's happening here. I've never seen this before, so this is exciting for me.
So I'm just trying to get everything ready so I can start to work on the noodles. We bought some noodles, and honestly, I probably use bought noodles. Sun Noodle, which I mentioned, has been a longtime partner of Momofuku for years. Ken and his family were able to build a factory in New Jersey, and we're talking like 2009, fundamentally altered the ramen game for myself, but for everyone else. In Japan, you know a place is only dedicated to ramen if they're making their own thing, right? Like, it's really hard. Some of the ramen noodle machines are so well built and engineered that you can like tuck it away underneath. But again, like the covers might be different. Like in Momo, we were doing like 300, 400 a night on like a Monday, all day. So like we just couldn't keep up with demand. And like, I don't bake my own bread for the same reason. So it's like Sun Noodle was such an amazing partner. And now they're basically the noodle of choice for everyone in America, the world, to that degree. But that does leave a small group of people, and there are some chains as well that do it, that make their own. And I gotta be honest, the places that I really like are places that make their own noodles, but that they don't make anything else, right? Momo Noodle Bar to me has always been, since 2004, it turned into a little bit of everything. Yes, we have noodle soups, ramen, blah, 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 but we have green market stuff, we have buns, etc. But like there are places where they only serve like that they're very rare, and you should frequent those places because it's just a different vibe.
Also really hard to pull. I mean, like, we haven't talked about this today, but like, I mean, Momo having all of the stuff, the buns and the green market food and all of that, like, a lot of that also comes out of necessity of a restaurant in America, right? Where it's not the same thing in Japan. If you watch Tampopo, a ramen shop is sit down, eat your noodles, get the fuck out in 10 minutes. And you're churning many, many, many customers. Like, Americans go to dinner and they want to sit at your table for 90 minutes, right? And like,
well, like,
you can't just sell them a,
you know, I would say never say never. I think one day we will, you know, I don't know. But the idea of making your own noodles, and that's the funny thing, is like watching Tampopo caused me to like think about a lot of things that like, oh man, like how different would things be if I had the ability to buy a ramen machine, a noodle machine. You don't understand how many fucking hours I spent. I'm like, I gotta make, how am I gonna do, who am I gonna get to do the shipping? Who's gonna do the maintenance if it breaks? Like, that shit exists now.
Yeah.
So it's just mental to me, you know, going back to Sun, that I guarantee you, Chris, that just as a reference of how impactful ramen has been, you can get a good bowl of ramen in every town in America. Let's say over 20,000 people, 25,000 people, 50,000, let's say 50,000.
Let's, somebody shout out a mid to small size town in America. What do you got?
Bozeman, Montana.
Oh my God, Bozeman, Montana ramen. There's Hokkaido Ramen House. There's Hugkan, Naked Noodle. You have like, I'm cutting some of these Korean grills out of here and sushi places. You have at minimum 6 places you can get ramen in Bozeman, Montana. Like, that is just absolutely mind-boggling to me. I mean, and totally bonkers. So, like, Sun was the first place that was willing to kind of do that thing that you had been hoping someone would do, which is like, hey, will you make my noodles to spec?
Yeah. And they're like, Sun Noodle is the NVIDIA of ramen. They really are. It's like, you can't do fucking, I don't know what AI shit is, GPT stuff. But all I know is like, can't do it without that shit.
Can't do ramen without the noodle chips. Yeah.
And there are other places where you can get other of those same chips, but like for the most part, like, you know, some of the big tech firms are making their own. Great.
That's very, very funny.
It really is.
Yeah.
And like, I was like, holy shit, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why Japanese ramen will always be better, and Japanese food in general will always be better than anywhere else in the world, they've had that relationship with vendors and restaurants and chefs for hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. Ramen is not that old, but in general, like, you can get anything, it's not as difficult. Clearly it's difficult. The difference is everyone in Japan is fighting for the best ingredients. Mm-hmm. They are here too, but it's just different sports, man.
Yeah. It's just an entirely different infrastructure for how food is made in restaurants.
All right. Let's try to do this. Make some noodles.
All right.
So this has been the baking soda that's baked about 250 for an hour. So what happens is the heat, what is it called? Thermo-reversible bond or something like that?
I don't know what it's called.
But it goes from sodium bicarbonate and the carbon dioxide molecule burns off and the water molecule burns off and you get sodium carbonate, which is really similar to the salts, the alkaline salts used in Asia for kansui. And I'm gonna use, so I just threw out, I just wanted to see. So the only reason I'm measuring it out, and I didn't even measure out perfectly, it's just 538 grams, should be like 500, just so I can be like, what's like 2% of 538? 11?
Yes. But the sodium bicarbonate, which is baking soda,
Right.
becomes sodium carbonate, becomes a stronger base.
Well, the problem is if I knew what I was gonna do, I'd probably have added it to the water, but I don't know how much water I'm gonna add. So I decided to add the kansui first, because maybe I'd add too much. I don't know if that made any sense.
I mean, kind of. It's a very idiosyncratic thing. Baking soda is one of my least favorite cooking activities because it's like, it's a pure faith thing. It looks identical to before you baked it, and you're like, I'm gonna assume science worked and something happened here.
Move this to the back.
Oh my God, what a relief.
Oh,
I've got a, when we had a commenter, something for you to think about as you're moving around the kitchen here. Somebody commented on one of our videos or something about Tampopo and said, and this is deep cuts for people who have seen Tampopo, said the gangster in white is actually the grown-up little boy.
the what?
Is the grown-up little boy.
How does he know this?
I don't know. I haven't seen. I think there's like a whole like video essay about this or something, but I don't know. I was like, no, because the gangster's. Oh wait, the gangster's never shown at the same time. Maybe he is the grown-up little boy. I don't like it though. I don't like our cute little boy.
You're the last person to realize that. You know, this is like Sixth Sense. I was like, I was the last person to realize he's dead.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Maybe this is accepted, but like, I don't know. I love weird theories like that.
Okay.
How's it taste?
I'm gonna let this cook down. I'm gonna strain it out, and we'll have our. I added Malden instead of the traditional kosher because it's more of a pure sea flavor, salt.
So with a tare, because they are all intended to be, I mean, tare is also what you paint onto yakitori when you're grilling it, but these are pretty intensely seasoned sauces, right? Like
Yeah.
they're intended to go into soup.
Oh yeah, check on this. So I did like, I don't know, 538 grams of flour, which is weird. 12 grams of sodium carbonate. I don't know, 200 grams of water. I'm gonna check.
538 because this is just a congressional bowl of ramen, I guess.
God, I'm not trying to blow smoke up my own ass.
But it's perfect.
It's pretty fucking good.
It's perfect. Here it comes. Let's see
Well,
it.
no, I mean, like, no, I'm just saying, like, me eyeing the fucking water
Oh yeah.
is pretty good. It's pretty good.
Fine.
Not gonna lie, it's pretty good.
Fine.
So really, you need to let this rest. They say it's rest, you know, to rest dough. It is important because it changes the structure, it relaxes. It's also makes it somewhat easier to roll out. But the listeners, the viewers of this audience, they don't have fucking time. And we don't bullshit you like other fucking TV shows where we're like, oh look.
I mean, how hard, it is like, in my experience,
Whoa,
difficult.
I haven't done this in so long.
I was gonna say, difficult dough to work with though at this point, like without
Also,
the
I
rest.
shouldn't be, I gotta change how I
You should not be right shouldering that.
right shoulder in anything.
Yeah. I mean, I'm honestly, I can't believe you're making ramen in this amount of time. Just making the dough from scratch is so bonkers.
Oh yeah, you got fucking eggs.
The egg topping didn't exist in the Tampopo day.
No. A lot of people put onsen tamago on eggs. And again, I can't tell for sure, but I think Momofuku was the very first restaurant to ever put onsen tamago on ramen.
Onsen tamago being the
Slow poached eggs, the bath eggs that when I learned about them, it was at the same time that Anthony from Mugaritz learned about it. And he was the first person to demo it at Madrid Fusion, I think like 2003. And I wrote about it. I saw it when I was watching Formula 51 with Samuel L. Jackson at the Shinjuku movie theater.
I was like, what is
where
that?
like, because I was so fucking dead broke, I could only watch movies after they were like a year out in release. And I was sitting next to this woman that took a sukiyaki don. So that's sukiyaki, like the Japanese, like flavorful vegetable beef thing, on rice. And she starts to crack, and traditionally you eat sukiyaki with a raw egg. You crack it open, sometimes you put a little soy sauce in it and you dip the sukiyaki into it. So she takes out the egg and I was looking at her like she was growing a third head. I was like, what are you doing? And she cracks it and out comes this perfectly poached egg, and I'd never seen anything like that. And I was just like, what is that?
Yeah.
And then at the time I didn't even know Anthony had figured out how to do it in a water circulator. So I started doing it. We should talk at length about egg yolks in Asian cuisine and cuisine in general. It's to me one of the most amazing ways to add luxury and richness to a dish because everyone can do it. But what I wanted to do more than anything was to do a fudgy soy boiled egg. Because to me, those are one of the most decadent, delicious things. That's actually like my favorite part of a bowl of ramen if it's offered. But you're also remembering at a time when we're opening it up, I thought that if I only served bottles of Dollar Poland spring water, I wouldn't have to serve water glasses. If I, it was almost like a dim sum ordering system where just check your box. I didn't need servers. And I had to do that because nobody wanted to work with me. Thank God Telkino showed up. But I just was like, I calculated all the things that I needed to do time-wise to do like 75, 100 covers, and back then we were doing like 10. But I didn't have time to peel eggs. So I was like, oh, I'm just gonna do, we actually nobody knows this, at the original noodle bar, I had set up a station with like that twine, that wire that you use to kill people with. And it was set up with like a little weight so I could just cut the eggs. And then never used because I was like, I just don't have the time. I was like, but I want to have the option for egg because adding egg yolk is such a Korean thing. I was like, I'm just gonna use slow poached eggs. So after we'd cook our ramen on the candy stoves in deep hotel pans, we would take a 6-inch perforated hotel pan, and then we put a 4-inch perforated hotel pan in it, fill it with water, fill it with 2 flats of eggs, and we would do one of these guys. It would stick our finger in there. And the reason I know that is I went to a bath in Japan that, it smelled like shit because it was sulfury, it was gross, but like, I was like, oh, that's the temperature. And I remembered what that temperature was, and I was like, that is not nice. That hurts. So like, I was like, so it's to the point where like you want to pull it out, but you can keep it in there if you're like fucking gung-ho. And
So
that to me is the temperature, which I found out is like 143 to 145, 60 to 61 Celsius. And we were just doing it by like that.
But
truly.
The onsen tamago is named after like hot springs because these are literally, you would put baskets of eggs into these hot springs that are a very constant temperature. Like that is the key, is like, it's not a boiled egg, it's sub boiling temperature, but consistent. And that's how you get this kind of like, the white is cooked, it's set, but it's still runny. The yolk is a little creamy, but it's cooked through. And it's like, that thing is very real of like, I remember when I was learning to cook over a grill top, the chef was like, it's hot enough when you can hold it over for 2 seconds exactly before you want to die.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, perfect. I can do that.
Sorry, camera.
Can you do, after you empty this, can you do like a quick little survey of all the components and where we are with this bowl of ramen?
So right now, So this is the pork shoulder, and this is going to be really our broth, and it's super clean. And in general, I don't like adding aromatics until later. The only aromatics I really added were garlic and ginger, because now I can control it. Talking about clean flavors, like I hate when flavors get muddled. There's a scene in Tampopo where they're like, oh, your vegetables, everything is too muddled. Like, to me, cooking, and again, fine dining cooking or ambitious cooking, I hate, we need a better term, is like when it's just fucking mastery of control. And I don't want to add shit in there, because if I added all the vegetables in there, this would look like baby puree, baby food. So that's why I'm now going to take this out. I'm going to keep everything in there, and then I'm going to start adding the flavors that I want.
Because this is going to become our broth.
Correct.
And so this again is a kind of a different level of doneness than I think a lot of, nobody really, I don't know, not nobody, but as far as like American cookbooks and websites and blah, 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 nobody aspires to this specific texture.
It's almost underdone.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's got to be pull apart tender.
At the restaurant, we confit it in pork fat, so it's easier to shred, but traditionally I feel like shoulder chashu or something, sometimes even loin is served, because nobody likes fucking pork loin. And actually, I think the Canadians don't either, which is why they sell it to us.
That's why they turn it into
actually,
bacon.
that's not. Pea meal bacon is fucking delicious. It's got a different texture. So bowl of ramen, the opening scene of Tampopo, you see the bowl. It's a fucking lie. It's a joke too. But the master telling them how to eat a bowl of ramen. One of the things that happens is like it's a study of textures as well. And chashu should be something that has springiness and a bite to it. So I'm going to let this cool, so when you slice it, it doesn't fall apart.
I am learning about what pea meal bacon is for the first time. You just mentioned this casually, but this is a wet cured, unsmoked bacon rolled in cornmeal, mainly found in Ontario.
That's right.
What the hell? What is this? How is there a bacon I've never had?
Right. So I saw this scrap of ham. It's prosciutto. I'm going to cut a little bit of it. And you know where I picked this up? So I know a lot of Japanese people and Asian people in general didn't like our broth because it didn't taste Japanese. Well, I made sure that it was American. Could I have gotten all the ingredients from Japan? Yes. But having spent time in Japan, I feel like I internalized that what makes Japanese so delicious is it's really getting the best local ingredients humanly possible. I also didn't want to put katsuobushi, the wafu style, in our ramen because I don't think I was wrong. Guess what? Your little secret. Americans don't like fishy flavor. They'll eat it if it's in like a miso soup, but like if you have to taste fish, it's not something that they're going to want. So I wanted to recreate the flavor of smoke and that umami-ness, and I got that from Alan Benton's bacon, which we still put in our ramen today. And that, when I went to his smokehouse in like 2004 or 3, it was 2003. It felt like I was in a katsuobushi smokehouse. It smelled. And I was like, well, and this later proved to be very important because we started at our lab making katsuobushi out of pork. And then when I went to Bally's, one of the tricks to their, and they would make it in 20,000 gallon pots. They put all this salted ham.
Interesting.
In, and that's what gave it that funk. So I'm gonna add a little bit more. And this is pretty concentrated right now.
But this is just another example, I feel like, of just how, like my favorite thing is sort of like chefy logic, where it's like, okay, most people might say, I can't make this without katsuobushi. This is like the recipe says it has to have katsuobushi. Like I need to go order this off Amazon, or I need to go buy this thing. But your mind is like, what is the actual?
How do you recreate?
What's the function of this ingredient?
Right.
And what else could I use to achieve the same function?
And like, to me, that's being respectful.
Yeah.
I want to honor the flavors and the ideas of the food without actually, making a facsimile. And that's what nothing against, again, like, I think authenticity is super important when it's there to preserve. But when I can't make something because I need the exact same thing from the DOP or Italy and it needs to be shipped over, that's stupid. So, the way I looked at it is if Japanese people moved to Madisonville, Tennessee, in the Smoky Mountains 150 years ago, would they use smoky bacon? 100%. Well, then you ask, how could that be? Well, look at the food of fucking Peru. Chifa food is like 150 years old, and do they use potatoes? Do they use cilantro? Do they use all these things? Of course, that's what food does. So, for all the critics out there, I'm not going to say fuck you, but...
Well, I wanted to talk about that a tiny bit, because it's like... This is a slightly circuitous route to this, but I mean, people ask all the time, including people in our office.
I need a timer for 6 minutes.
6 minutes sitting. People ask all the time, like, why does Dave say ramen instead of ramen? And I have to be like,
how do I say it?
Ramen.
I say ramen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're like, you have like because what is noodles in Korean?
It's Korean.
Yeah. So like there's like, I think that people
Who's correcting me? Who are these people that are correcting
They're
me?
asking.
Who are these fucking people? Who?
Some people over here. No, they're just wondering.
No white people.
No, some Asian people ask me too. Why does he say it like that? And I'm like, I mean, he's...
Nyan. So for those that don't know, Nyan, lo mein,
yeah, nailed it in one.
Chicken lo mein is noodle.
Mian. In Chinese, mian.
Well, in America, you're wrong.
Oh, I'm sorry. In America, it's main.
Main. In Chinese, how do you pronounce it incorrectly?
Mian.
Mian.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
It's pretty close to what you say in Korean.
I'm clearly Americans do it better. Mian.
No, but it's interesting.
And in Korea, you know what noodles are? Yeah, nyan.
What?
What?
And then it became in Japanese ramen, right? So I've always thought it was so telling that you do that.
I didn't know that ramen started with an R.
You thought it was an L?
Yeah, because that's how my parents, ramen.
Yeah, ramen.
Because they can't pronounce R's, ramen.
But like that to me was so telling. So basically, like, when I first ate Momofuku ramen, I think in maybe 5, 6, and I was like, oh, this is delicious. But I didn't have the ramen vocabulary. I had never been to Japan to understand what was happening in terms of like, oh, there's Benton's bacon in this broth, that making it kind of American in that way. There's this sort of onsen tamago is very similar to like what you're saying, just like Koreans love stirring a raw egg into a super hot stew. That's like a very Dave-ism thing. There's so many elements of it that made it kind of idiosyncratic and like yours, but also American, Korean, Japanese, all of the above. You succeeded. Did anybody within that first, the ascent of Momofuku, did any critic come in and like have any idea what was happening?
Yeah, I mean, the worst people were Asian people, number one.
But did anybody understand?
No, because here's the thing. You would have the same people. We had the great Michael Chimuristi on from Providence, and we were talking about the version 2.0 of American chefs that brought in the flavors and concepts of Europe, the Larry Forgionis, the Jonathan Waxmans, the Charlie Palmers, etc., the Clicchios of the world. Nobody got mad at them for making the foods of Europe with American ingredients. When Ducasse later opened up Essex House and he only had American ingredients, nobody said you're being a motherfucker because you're only making French food, haute cuisine with American ingredients. So this is what gets me fucking really riled up when I was like, how is that not racist?
Right. Well, not to always pit us against the Italians, but I remember when Rich and Mario opened Teresi and Carbone, which everybody knows now, Like the food writers were able to articulate it instantly. They were like, Rich and Mario are imagining Little Italy as another region of Italy. What would happen just using, if Italian Americas was its own region? But I was like, why did you get that instantly? Like you didn't get what like an Asian person wants to not. Oh, I forgot to say this, Dave. Like, happy AAPI month. I forgot to mention.
Yay! Yay! Hooray!
Oh, it's been 6 minutes.
Hooray!
Do you have all your decorations up around the house? I'm sorry. It is a good thing that we have this.
What's wrong with you?
It's a good thing I don't know. I was just like, every month is AAPI month for me. It's like speaking of those eggs, I just remember that period, you know, when like you were saying, Andoni and you and everybody was sort of like, you know, partially thanks to immersion circulators and things like that, but really it was so funny that you all had developed a very specific temperature you liked your eggs cooked at.
I like mine more runny.
Yours were definitely on like the rarer side than other people.
Oh, I think I got a lot done.
All right, so we have egg topping done. Belly is still bellying. Or what?
Belly's still cooking.
You didn't really. So update us on broth. So you put some. Did aromatics go in?
Aromatics went in. I put scallions, some ginger. Oh man, this is. Whoa! We might need a new rice cooker.
Jeez Louise.
Holy shit!
No, please no. That's such a nice rice cooker.
Wow.
For those just tuning in to this episode of the Dave Chang Show, Dave tried. I'm not going to say tried. I can't see around this corner, so I don't know what's going on. But there's a whole chicken in our rice cooker right now.
How did all this? What is this milky substance? Where did it come from? I'm so confused. How did this happen?
What is all this milky substance has literally never been a question you want asked.
It's cold too. I expected it to be hot.
It's cold?
Yeah, look. It's almost like somebody spilled milk. I don't think it is me. I think someone spilled like oat milk back there.
Just on the no, there was no oat milk on the counter. That's chicken.
No.
Oh, our producers are telling us that at a certain point, as we were talking, it was
sure
Old Faithful
Fake
was happening.
News. Fake news.
Okay. They just AI'd that in earlier.
Oh Lord, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to Old Faithful here.
I mean, do you want me to? Good God, man.
She's like the Millennium Falcon. I feel bad.
It is a very nice rice cooker that is
Oh Lord.
crammed it chicken into. Can
You
see
deserve
Tapio?
better. You deserve better.
Oh my.
Wow.
I'm going to take a look at what we had for an Ask Dave today, as you are finding your way. The Ask Dave question was about clean flavors. Well, Jeremy, I already asked your question for you earlier, but now I'm saying your name. Was your idea, you wanted to make a separate chicken?
Yeah, but because like now, if I need it to balance out, I can either make it just chicken, try chicken broth, or I can just add it in, having never made these flavors before, so I want to have ultimate control as well.
Wild. So today, Chang has employed both the stovetop pressure cooker and also the pressure cooker function on our rice cooker. I think it just bears mentioning basically that a pressure cooker works by raising the boiling point of the liquid so that the liquid can be hotter without evaporating into, or without boiling and turning into steam. Otherwise, you sort of max out the temperature of your water at 212 degrees.
I didn't know that rice cookers also made oat milk.
Is that what's happening back there?
That was really weird.
Is it like the protein from the chicken?
I don't know.
Gross.
But I didn't know oat milk came from chicken.
It's just like so gross. Milky.
Did you know?
No, I mean...
I was 47 years old today when I learned that oat milk came from chicken. Because I don't know what the fuck I cleaned up, but it certainly wasn't chicken. It was definitely oat milk.
I have other Ask Daves. You know what, actually, what's funny, Dave? We solicit Ask Daves, and I would say 60 to 70% of the Ask Dave questions we get are, how are you doing, Dave?
What do you mean?
That most people just want to know how you're doing generally. That's the most common Ask Dave
My body
question.
is breaking down.
Yeah.
That's all that needs to be known.
It's been a remarkable run of poor health here over the last...
While I've been trying to get healthy, that's how I get sick. But, I mean, effectively, there would be no way I could work in a kitchen anyway. So,
On the egg front here,
maybe a little bit more than under.
but generally speaking, people will always talk about the 5-minute egg, the 6-minute egg, the 5-minute and 45-second egg, but it is boiling water, eggs into boiling water for X number of seconds, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And the difference between 6 minutes and 6:20 is
8.5 to 9 gets you hard boiled.
yeah,
Everything in between there is like a magic show.
yeah, totally.
So it's really something else.
It's remarkable what like 10 or 15 or 20 seconds can mean in terms of like mostly yolk doneness.
There's so many variables. So I'm peeling these eggs, which are, I would say, soft, and I'm gonna leave them in that tare solution. After which, I am going to start rolling noodles, and we'll start cooking and assembling this thing. I put a couple carrots, 1 onion, and scallion ends into the broth, into the main ramen broth. I'll strain out. And you know what? I will do everything first before I roll out the noodles. Get everything to the end.
So you just mentioned tare again. I just for the sake, I'm sure we maybe mentioned this, but we've said it so many times during this episode. But again, like tare is it gets the worst definition, but maybe semi-accurate. People always call it like Japanese barbecue sauce.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Because it's what they put on yakitori, but it is a seasoning sauce, right? Like, is there like a Western equivalent of tare?
Then using that logic,
Oh God.
barbecue sauce is French fry sauce.
I thought you were gonna say barbecue sauce is American tare.
Barbecue sauce is American French fry sauce.
But is there an equivalent in Western cuisine in terms of just like a seasoning?
Yeah, French.
Okay.
No, I would say this is similar to making some kind of French sauce, but not really. It's also like tare is like something unique to Japan as
Yeah.
well. I think
Yeah.
the concept. But I would say if there's anything similar, the French have it.
And soaking it in soaking the eggs in the tare right here is essentially you're making some version like that thing you talked about earlier, like the soy sauce fudgy soy egg, which like you boil the egg and then you let it bathe in soy
Right.
until it basically changes color. There's like the Chinese tea egg, which is kind of similar too.
So I used to cut a tremendous amount of scallions, and I am rusty as all hell. But I know, because I would time myself. Time is of the essence, right? It's one of the things I feel like, again, the bear gets really right on the show, is how fleeting time is. So you need to save as much time as you can, wherever you can. And I needed to know how much, we go through so many scallions at a restaurant. I need to know how long a bunch, and we'd go through maybe sometimes like 6 bunches of scallions, 6 cases. One case on average, 27 to 30 minutes. One cook.
That's so many scallions, man. I've never, just because I hadn't had enough access to it.
I'll tell you right now, this would go straight into a family meal.
Because of the poor quality of slice right there?
I mean, part of what is left is like, my hands are just so fucked.
I mean,
but
I think most
better than any other TV chef.
I was gonna say most people are being like, I don't know, this is probably the nicest scallions I've ever seen. Difference between negi and scallions. So negi, whenever you go to Japan,
Japanese. So tama negi is a round onion. Negi scallions are a little bit more like leek size of leeks, but they're not.
Similar.
Read what's on there. I don't even know.
Oh, this is the Naruto. We've got the fish cakes here. Okay. Alaskan pollock, water, sugar.
So this is basically imitation crab.
It's imitation crab with food coloring to give it the little spiral. Oh, MSG, sweet rice wine. Yeah, it's identical to imitation crab. And then this is bamboo shoot.
Yep.
Which will also get tare treatment or what?
Yeah, it's already cooked. I'm just gonna season it. I should pickle it, but I'm not. How are we doing here?
All right, so we have this is topping assembly here. We're gonna get ourselves organized and take a quick little commercial break right now. All right, so you've strained the shio tare.
Yep, and I put the chashu on broil. Excuse me.
Try to get a little crispy.
Yep.
It's noodle rolling time.
In reality, I would not have cooked this with the skin on. I was being a little lazy.
Change in pliability for that dough? Did it
Yeah, it's definitely looser in a good way. It's going to be easier to roll out.
All right. For those listening along, that's the sound of a pasta roller rolling pasta. For those watching along who may own a similar pasta roller, you'll notice ours has been slightly modified.
Yeah, what happened?
This pasta roller out of the box comes with a really, really aggressive...
Oh, is this the fucking one? I hate this one.
No, this is the one you like because the guard has been removed.
Oh, the guard, but it came with this guard that made it impossible to use.
Just like absolutely impossible to use this thing out of like sort of nanny state style safety concerns that a cook might get their fingers rolled through. But you really couldn't work with it. And then our own Ira took this home over a weekend and maybe did some modifications. Any first impressions of your dough work here?
Pretty good. pretty good. Pretty good.
Was it was just AP flour? It was just AP flour, consway, and water? Yeah, look at that. So one thing we haven't talked about today as you're rolling this out, like the premise here today was basically we watched Tampopo.
You can make ramen at home.
We got hungry. We want to make ramen at home. But the alternative that we have not discussed.
Oh, you know, I was watching it with Grace and we were so fucking hungry.
You're so hungry.
So fucking hungry. I mean, it really invented food porn. We talked about it on the podcast, but
truly invented food porn.
We just, it's the kind of thing where we have instant ramen, we have Momofuku noodles. It's just not going to hit. You need something.
You need a bowl of ramen, but here's my question then. You're watching Tampopo, you're watching anything about ramen at home, you're getting so hungry, you and your wife are laying there and you're like, did the thought ever cross your mind, Dave? We should order some delivery ramen.
It was too late. But that night we watched it was too late. But what we do the next day? Order ramen.
So you will order delivery ramen?
I've never ordered delivery ramen in my life, actually.
And you did though?
I did this time, and there's a lot of things that make it very hard to do. It's one of the reasons why for years I hated doing delivery of Momofuku. Because in New York, you're going to be judging this just like you've been waiting 3 hours, but now you're sitting in your boxers and watching TV, and it's like lukewarm. The biggest issue was not that it wasn't delicious. One of the things with ramen, you got to eat it like ripping hot.
You have to eat it ripping hot. Like that's sort of, we say there's not a lot of rules, but like, I guess in terms of a bowl of ramen it's different for skemen, obviously different for mazimen, but like if you're eating a shio or shoyu ramen, like it really does have to be hot. But that's like the primary.
Yeah, and the noodles also get a little stuck together.
When they deliver it separately or no?
Yeah, you have to. But, I mean, it's to no one's fault. It's just really difficult to make ramen scratch. So, like, even if I get pho, I'm still reheating the broth.
Yeah.
And again, when I say hot, like, you actually you'll burn yourself. And you actually have to, that's just actually what people do. That sounds so stupid, but yeah.
It's not, I don't want people to think that is just an unnecessary custom or some kind of like machismo. It's just, it tastes better, infinitely better that way. It has to be hot like that to be good. Or great, I should say. Look at that. So there's our, admittedly, through the spaghetti cutter.
Well, chicken lo mein shape.
What is your,
Can I just say it's so nice doing a podcast that we can do it this way?
Yeah.
For years. All right, I'm going to take out the porco belly.
So this pork belly went in, I don't know, hour and 20 minutes ago. And then, oh.
Hot.
I feel like this is the most frustrating thing for home cooks to see, and it's like hard to explain. It's just like hard to explain. I feel like if a home cook had accomplished a piece of meat that looks like that, it would be like one of the great triumphs of any home cook's career. But you kind of just were like, I have 1 hour and 20 minutes to make this, and therefore it will be done in 1 hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, it's infuriating to home cooks, I think, just to be like, what the hell
would you like
happened?
to taste all the components?
Yeah, let's do it.
Come back here. Here you go, some tasting spoons right there.
All right. So this is, what was pork broth? Well, this is the pork.
Yep. That was just the pork.
Drippings, just added aromatics. Ooh.
Delicious, right?
A little more pork dripping. But that is not as salty as it will be because of tare. Oh man.
And taste the shiro one.
Oh my goodness. So this, for people if you can see, that was the one that's like soy based that he's soaking his eggs in. This one has no soy sauce, but it had all of the sort of dried. Oh, that one's ridiculous. That one's outrageous. That's stupid. Oh my God. And then this was your chicken broth. Yeah, also just like chicken milk. That's ridiculous, man. The Shio one is crazy. So I'm freaking out about that one that I was saying earlier was like a second baseman running into the stands, but that is like, it was just for anybody again who is just tuning in. One of his two tares, seasoning sauces, is salt based, but it was seaweed, like dried kombu, dried shiitake mushroom and katsuobushi, chicken fat, bacon fat, right?
Yeah.
Water, mirin. Ridiculous.
I definitely could have cooked the pork a little longer, but I pulled it out simply because I couldn't hear it anymore.
Couldn't stand listening to
So
the
before it
pressure.
was like, it's underdone. I know. But not really.
Oh my God. All right, so you have all your components, toppings. Is that the, so I mean, we just use a spaghetti cutter, but like if you were, what are your thoughts on sort of thickness of noodle for a soup noodle?
I think for home, that's perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, I like thicker noodles too, but.
That is absurd, man. Ripping
Gotta let
hot.
this cool down.
Ripping hot.
Just want to get a couple slices.
Am I crazy, or when you first started eating ramen in Japan, would you often get like the pork belly would be cold on top?
Fuck, dude. Salty, but good. Oh man.
Oh my God. This is kind of the problem with a show like this now, because at a certain point it just devolves into mukbang. Oh my God. You know the other thing, so you're about to put these aren't even like ideal ramen bowls. But as we were talking about this in the office the other day, the other issue that arose about delivery ramen was like a very simple one, which is that we took a straw poll around the office and we were like, how many people have a big noodle soup bowl at home? And I think it was just you and me.
Well, not a surprise. Look at us.
But like that's like legitimately a thing. I feel like people order pho or ramen at home and like you actually don't have a bowl. You end up eating it out of like the same bowl you eat cereal out of.
I mean, I used to make ramen at home all the time before Momo Food, but
Just to scratch the itch.
no, to fucking learn what the fuck I was doing, testing it out. But you know, one time when I was living on my friend's futon, Upper West Side, I was cooking at Cafe Balloon and I'd walk across to work. My one day off, I'd make ramen. And I would like triple bag these with all the pork rinds and everything. And one time there was a hole on the bottom and I didn't know, and it spilled all the way out.
Oh my God.
And it was pretty easy for everyone to know.
Just like a trail behind you?
Who did what.
Oh my God.
Thankfully, my friend owned the building. No, I was in a lot of trouble. So one of the things that I'm going to do here, because these are more delicate noodles as they cook, I'm going to shock them. I like shocking my noodles in general. Sometimes it's hard to do during service because we're just not set up that way. But it also washes off all the starch. So these are all things that I want, depending on the broth, but.
You want the starch off because you don't want it bleeding into your broth and clouding it up and generally.
Pretty good. Not gonna lie. Pretty fucking good.
Oh my God, man.
Sorry.
Oh my God.
I am sorry, folks.
Never apologize for being good. I'm very happy for people to see this again. Once again, I apologize for pitting us against the Italians again. But like, in those early days, in those early aughts, it was always this thing of like, how come you can sell a bowl of spaghetti with tomatoes and olive oil for $27? But if you can see the number of components in a bowl of ramen, and the idea that you couldn't charge whatever you wanted to charge for it is insane. Like, look how many distinct things.
Yeah, I mean, this was one of my biggest, like, fuck, this is not chair. Someone could charge in New York like $28, $30 for canned tomatoes and dry pasta.
But like, look at how many components, and like, you know, I mean, at that same time, Dave, what do you think the price point maxed out for a bowl of ramen? Like, people
I don't know. I hope it goes up to fucking $200.
Like, no joke though. Like, if you, the listener, you, the viewer, had made all this, how much would you want to charge somebody for all this labor? You know. Oh, we got an omori size portion here, huh?
I think I like colder noodles simply because of the soba shop I was at too. But fun. Pretty good.
Oh my goodness.
And I should have
Oh man, thing of beauty.
took the noodles out first. So can I get those noodles back? Well, I forgot I didn't season any of this stuff. It's okay.
Yeah, it's hard to sort of convey to people. And this was like I remember when I was going to Japan for the first time. I think I asked
I'm doing
Dave.
the Chute tare. See how it tastes.
I remember asking Dave, like, is it really going to be that different to eat ramen? It's like, yeah. But it's hard to like convey to people like what noodles are supposed to be like, because such a different texture than an al dente Italian pasta. It's just like a completely different chew and spring to the noodles. This is where you need that assassin string. So for those watching along or not watching along, we're doing assembly here. He put the shiotare, the salt sauce in the bowl to season the broth, the pork broth. I joked earlier that it was an omori portion, just means extra noodles, crispy pork belly, that poached bamboo shoot.
And I actually find that a lot of people don't utilize this, but the nori, when it hits the broth, gives a flavor that is very hard to explain.
Wow, look at that thing.
There you go.
Thank you. Let's get some close up here.
I really like this tare.
That's like, stupid good.
We'll make a couple different styles here. So there it is. Like I have a chicken broth one, so maybe I'll just make these then. I'll do a shoyu style, and I'll do one clean chicken broth. So it's fucking delicious. So I'm gonna do the same thing with 2 more bowls of ramen. There's no point in you guys watching that, but I'm gonna use the shoyu one. And I'm gonna make a chicken ramen broth. And that was it. 90 minutes, we made a lot of food. Forgive us as we figure out our way and doing a video format on an audio format. But this is what we're gonna be doing now moving forward.